I woke up in a cold, sterile room, the kind of place you never expect to find yourself. It hit me like a punch. My daughter had put me in a nursing home without my knowledge. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't agreed to a damn thing. I tried, calling her, but nothing. No response. How could she do this to me? I didn't think I'd survive this betrayal. But what I didn't know was that the fight was just beginning. Before we continue, kindly hit the subscribe button and leave a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I couldn't get the words out of my head. My daughter put me in a nursing home. It didn't feel real. How could it be? She'd always been so devoted. At least that's what I thought. I stumbled out of bed, the cold floor biting at my feet. The walls around me felt like they were closing in, like this sterile prison was trying to suffocate me. I grabbed the phone again, desperate. I needed her to explain, to tell me this was all just some horrible mistake. But when I dialed her number, my hand shook so much the screen was blurry. I couldn't breathe. Hello? Her voice on the other end sounded so casual, so detached, like we hadn't just been torn apart. What the hell is going on? I could barely keep the words from coming out as a shout. Why am I here? Why did you do this to me? She sighed, the kind of sigh you give someone when you're explaining something obvious. It's for your own good, Dad. You know that, right? You weren't taking care of yourself. My own good? I felt rage bubbling up, but I bit it down. How dare she? How dare she think she could decide what was best for me? I didn't ask for this. My voice cracked before I could control it. I hated how weak it sounded. You didn't even talk to me about it. I didn't sign anything. You just took control. Dad, please. Her voice was cold. I've been trying to do what's best. You weren't listening to me. You were too stubborn, always insisting you could handle everything. Stubborn? I repeated, my throat tightening. I trusted you. I thought you loved me, but this is betrayal. I didn't even recognize the words coming out of my mouth anymore. She paused, the silence on the other end like an open wound. Then she spoke, but not with an ounce of warmth. I'm just trying to help. You need to trust me. Trust her? After this? I didn't know who she was anymore. I hung, up without another word, slamming the phone down with a shaky hand. My mind was spinning. She wasn't just cold, she was manipulative. This wasn't about helping me. This was about control. I turned to the side, my head heavy, for my own good. But something didn't sit right. I needed answers. I couldn't just let this go. I started searching through the things around me, papers, files, anything that might explain how I got here. It wasn't long before I found it. A stack of letters, financial documents, and in the corner, something that almost knocked the wind out of me. A letter addressed to me, from her, explaining that she'd been managing my finances for the past 6 months. I froze, the words blurred in front of my eyes. She'd been handling my money without asking. She didn't trust me enough to make my own decisions. I didn't know how long I stared at the paper, but the weight of it crushed me. She didn't just take control of my life. She took control of my finances. She was deciding what I could spend, where I could go, and how I lived. All behind my back. I'd been a fool. The hurt hit me like a truck. She never cared, not really. I thought she was my daughter, but now I see she's just a stranger wearing her face. I needed to do something. I had to get out of here. But what would I do next? The walls felt tighter. The hospital bed felt colder. And this fight, this wasn't over. It had only just begun. I couldn't sit still anymore. The lies, the betrayal, it was eating away at me. I needed answers. I needed to look her in the eye and hear her justify this. I wasn't just going to let her get away with this without facing the truth. I called her. Again. This time, I didn't want her to hide behind a screen. I needed to see her, confront her, face to face. Dad, what is it now? Her voice was tight, annoyed, like she was already irritated I was breathing. I want to see you. Now. She hesitated for a long moment, and then finally she said, Fine, I'll be there in an hour. An hour. It felt like a lifetime. I paced in the small room, my mind racing. I could feel the anger building up inside me, every muscle in my body, tensing. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me like this? When she finally walked in, her eyes avoided mine like she was ashamed. But I didn't want her shame. I wanted her truth. I barely waited for her to sit down before I fired the first shot. How could you do this to me? You put me in a nursing home without my permission, without even telling me. You stole my life from me. Her expression remained guarded, but I could see the flicker of something, maybe guilt, or maybe it was just frustration. She sighed, her shoulders slumping. Dad, I'm just trying to help. You're getting older, you need help, and I was the only one who could help you. Her voice was soft, but I could hear the coldness behind it. You weren't taking care of yourself. You weren't eating right. You didn't protect me. You destroyed me. I cut her off before she could finish. I didn't want to hear her excuses. Not now. Not after everything. How dare you think you could decide what's best for me? I trusted you. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tight. I did what was best for both of us. You were refusing help, Dad. You were stubborn. I did this for you. To protect you. Protect me? The word almost made me laugh, but the bitterness that rose in my throat made it more like a choking sob. Protect. Me? She was the one who had thrown me into this hellhole, and she was trying to make it sound like it was for my own good. You didn't protect me, you used me, I shot back, my voice shaking with rage. You took my independence, you took my dignity. I didn't want to, she said quietly, her voice cracking. But there was something in her eyes, something empty, like she had already moved on from the guilt. But you weren't listening. You didn't want to take care of yourself, and I couldn't watch you waste away. It was the only way. I stood up and turned my back to her, pacing the small room. My mind was a mess of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. How had it come to this? Had I ever been a father to her, or was I just a step in her plan? Had I been a burden all along? When I turned back around, she was standing too, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. That's when I saw it, the thing I hadn't expected. I checked your bank account, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though it shook with rage. You've been selling off my properties, without telling me. You've been draining my savings, all to fund your own lifestyle. Her face went pale. For a second, I thought I saw something like fear in her eyes. But then she blinked, and it was gone, replaced by a hard edge. You've been stealing from me? My words were a slow, deliberate accusation. You've been selling everything I've worked for, everything I've built, just to live your own life? She hesitated, then finally said, It was for both of us. I needed money to— No, I interrupted, my voice barely a whisper. No, you didn't do this for us. You did this for you. You've been using me, using my trust, and all along you've been lying about it. Her eyes flickered with something else now. Guilt? Maybe a little. But mostly it was deflection, avoidance. She wasn't going to face what she had done. Not now. Maybe never. You've crossed a line, I said, my voice low and filled with finality. And I'm done. I don't know who you are anymore. Her face softened for a second, like she was trying to reach out to me, but it was too late. I couldn't look at her the same way. The woman standing before me wasn't the daughter I raised. She was someone else, someone I didn't know. She opened her mouth to speak, but I couldn't stand to hear it anymore. I turned. walking away from her, heading straight for the door. "I'll be leaving soon," I said without looking back. "And you'll never get the chance to do this to me again." I didn't wait for her response. I just left. I wasn't sure where I was going or what I'd do next. But one thing was clear: the fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window, watching the world move without me. The silence in the room was suffocating. What have I become? A man who'd been manipulated, betrayed, and discarded by his own flesh and blood. I'd spent my whole life trusting her, believing she was the one person who would never hurt me. And yet, here I was, trapped in a place I never imagined, feeling more alone than I ever thought possible. The truth was, the betrayal didn't just hurt me, it broke me. Emotionally, mentally, physically. It felt like everything I had once stood for was crumbling. But then, as I sat there in the darkness, something inside me began to shift. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to crumble under this weight. I wasn't the victim. She thought she had taken everything from me, my freedom, my trust, my dignity. But she was wrong. She hadn't taken my soul. A flood of clarity rushed through me. This wasn't about reconciliation. It wasn't about fixing things with her. That door had closed the moment she manipulated me, the moment she decided that I was just another obstacle in her way. She was no longer my daughter. She was someone else, someone who was willing to destroy me to get what she wanted. And I would be damned if I gave her that satisfaction. I stood up, pacing the small room. There was a part of me that still wanted revenge. I could feel it, deep inside me. The desire to hurt her the way she had hurt me. To destroy her world, just like she had tried to destroy mine. But even as that thought crossed my mind, I knew something, stooping to her level, wasn't the answer. No matter how much I wanted to see her suffer, no matter how badly I wanted to watch her crumble, I was better than that. I couldn't just lash out in anger. Revenge was too easy. And besides, that wasn't the kind of man I wanted to be. I wanted power, but not the kind of power that came from breaking someone else. I wanted control over my own life, over the situation she had forced me into. So, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg her for answers. I wasn't going to fight for her approval or try to mend things. I was going to take back control of my life, quietly, and let her fall on her own. I didn't need to destroy her directly. She'd do that herself. But I would make sure she paid for what she'd done. Not with blood, but with the truth. The next day, I started gathering information. Slowly, methodically, I used every connection I had, every resource I could think of. It wasn't hard. I'd spent years managing my own affairs, and I knew exactly where to look. I started digging into her finances. I knew she was in trouble, but I needed proof. Proof that would expose her for what she truly was, someone who used me, someone who would do anything to keep up her own comfortable life. Even at the cost of destroying her family, I found things, small details, hidden accounts, transfers I hadn't authorized. She had been siphoning money from my assets for months. She wasn't just selling my properties. She was draining everything she could get her hands on, using my trust as a currency to live her own life in luxury. I felt a cold satisfaction building inside me as I pieced the puzzle together. I wasn't doing this out of spite, but out of necessity. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about making her face the consequences of her own actions. Just as I was about to make my next move, ready to expose her for what she was, I received an unexpected message, an anonymous tip from an old business associate of mine, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew this was serious the moment I read the message. "Your daughter is planning something even worse. She's involved in something much bigger than you think. If you don't act now, it could destroy you both." The message was short, to the point, and full of meaning I couldn't yet understand. I froze. My mind raced. What had she done now? And what kind of mess had I stumbled into? This wasn't just about a nursing home or stolen money anymore. There was something deeper, darker, and I needed to know what it was. This wasn't just a fight for my life anymore. It was a fight for everything. My past, my future, my dignity. I wasn't sure who this anonymous source was or if I could even trust them. But it didn't matter. I had a choice to make now, and I was going to make sure I wasn't the one who lost. I sat in the dim light of the small office, staring at the screen in front of me. The cursor blinked in the email draft, the only sound in the room. My fingers hovered above the keys as I considered my next move. I'd already gathered everything I needed: financial records, emails, accounts, and proof of the millions she'd siphoned from me and others. But this would be the first real blow. I wasn't just going to expose her. No, that wouldn't be satisfying enough. I had to be subtle. It had to hurt, but it had to be quiet. I couldn't let her know it was me. Not yet. I clicked send. The email was simple: a detailed breakdown of her financial mismanagement, a string of lies she'd told to cover up her embezzling, all wrapped in a neat, anonymous package. I sent it to a handful of her closest business partners, those who had the power to hurt her. I wasn't sure who'd act first, but I didn't care. I was done being her victim. I leaned back in the chair and waited. The first sign came within hours. I didn't have to wait long. Her company's stock plummeted. I checked the numbers. It was massive, something like a 15% drop in a matter of hours. The news reports followed shortly after, citing a financial scandal surrounding the company. Her company, the one she'd worked so hard to build up. I felt a cold satisfaction deep inside me. It was just the beginning, but it felt right. She wasn't going to walk away from this unscathed. Not anymore. Not after everything she'd done to me. But then the pangs of guilt crept in. I'd never wanted to see her destroyed. I just wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, to understand that she couldn't get away with manipulating me, with taking everything I had. But now, seeing her empire crack open, seeing the world she'd built for herself begin to shake, I wasn't so sure anymore. I didn't want her ruined, but the truth was, I didn't know how far I'd be willing to let this go. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I had no choice. She'd taken so much from me already. As the news cycle grew louder, I sat there, the feeling of control both exhilarating and repulsive at the same time. I never thought I'd be here, watching her life collapse from a distance. Was this what she deserved? The phone buzzed on my desk, pulling me from my thoughts. It was an unfamiliar number. I picked up on the first ring, feeling a twinge of anxiety. "Is this Mr. David?" a voice asked, low and measured. "Yes," I said, sitting up straighter, my heart picking up pace. "I'm sorry to call you this way, but I think you should." "No, your daughter is cleaning up the mess you just started." The voice was calm, but there was an urgency behind it that made my pulse quicken. "She's pulling strings behind the scenes, trying to fix everything. She's got someone working to reverse the damage, and she's trying to bury the leaks before they go any further." My throat tightened. She was already covering her tracks? Already trying to save herself? "I don't know how far she's willing to go, but you should be careful," the voice continued. "She's more dangerous than you think." I hung up. The phone, staring at the screen, my stomach churning. Had I gone too far? The damage had already been done. I couldn't take it back, no matter how much I wanted to. But now, the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. I wasn't sure who was winning anymore. I'd wanted justice. I'd wanted to make her pay for what she did to me. But now, it felt like I was sinking into something darker, something I couldn't control. The lines were starting to blur. I wanted to destroy her, but I wasn't sure if I was becoming someone I could ever respect again. I'm not sure if I've crossed a line I can never uncross, I muttered to myself, feeling the weight of my actions pressing down on me. It was too late now. There was no turning back. The only question left was how far I was willing to go. The days dragged on in this strange limbo, where nothing felt real, but everything felt crushingly heavy. I hadn't heard from her since our last confrontation. My phone sat untouched on the nightstand, as if it were a reminder of something I'd lost. Trust, love, maybe even my own identity. She hadn't called, but I knew it was only a matter of time before she would try to reach out again. But I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I wasn't ready to be manipulated, to hear her excuses again. So I stayed quiet. I stayed distant. Cold. Every time I thought about picking up the phone, I reminded myself that this was the only way. This was the only way to regain control, and as much as I hated myself for it, a small part of me felt relief in my decision. Meanwhile, her world, her empire, the one she'd worked so hard to build, began to unravel. Every day, the news was filled with more stories about her company's downfall. It wasn't just the stock anymore. It was the gossip, the whispers from her colleagues, the investors who had begun pulling out. People who once respected her turned on her one by one. She'd built her life on lies. And now, those lies were coming to light. And the world was watching. I wasn't happy about it, though. No, that wasn't the truth. I wasn't happy. But I wasn't sad either. I was numb. The satisfaction I once felt from watching her fall apart had faded. Now it was just a sense of inevitability. This was happening. This was the price she would pay. But something still gnawed at me. I had to know more. So, I did what I had to do. I started digging deeper into her life, her personal life. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play dirty too. I wasn't going to sit back and let her continue hiding behind her lies. I tapped into the network of contacts I still had, old friends, former colleagues of hers, people who had been close to her. I used everything at my disposal, piecing together information, watching how her world was crumbling, and that's when I found it. The dark secret. It wasn't just financial mismanagement. It wasn't just embezzlement. No, this was much worse. I found traces of illegal dealings, bribes, kickbacks, even ties to shady organizations that I could hardly believe. She'd been laundering money, hiding assets in offshore accounts, working with people who could destroy her and me if they ever caught wind of this. It felt like a punch to the gut. I'd always known she was ambitious, but this was beyond anything I ever imagined. The emotions hit me all at once. Shock, disbelief, and a kind of icy rage that felt suffocating. How had she gotten so deep into this? How long had she been hiding this from me, from everyone? I sat there, staring at the evidence, unable to process it. It was like watching a stranger's life fall apart, someone who looked familiar, but was now unrecognizable. The woman I had raised, the woman I had trusted, she was gone. In her place was someone I didn't even recognize anymore. I thought back to everything we'd shared, every conversation, every moment I had believed she was doing this for us, for me. But now, I saw how deep her greed and manipulation ran. The cracks in her facade were widening, and I could no longer ignore the truth. I felt a surge of something, anger, yes, but also a deep, gnawing guilt. I wasn't sure what I felt anymore. Part of me wanted to destroy everything she had built, to see her suffer as much as I had. But another part of me, the part that had once loved her unconditionally, wanted to turn away, to let her fail on her own without my interference. Didn't know which side of me would win. I'd always known she wasn't perfect. But this was worse than I could have ever imagined. My phone buzzed again. I didn't look at it. I couldn't. I already knew it was her, trying again. I didn't want to hear her voice, hear the desperation in her words, or the lies she would surely throw at me. But as I sat there staring at the evidence in front of me, I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. She was lost. And maybe, just maybe, I was too. I wasn't sure if I could walk away from this. The damage was done, and somehow I knew. This wasn't just her battle anymore. It was mine too, and I had no idea where it would lead. The moment had arrived. I knew it. She didn't. I'd spent so many nights thinking about this confrontation, rehearsing what I would say, what I would do. But as I stood in front of her office, her world, the one she had built with lies, manipulation, and deceit, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't walking in as a father anymore. I was walking in as a ghost from her past, calm, collected, poised. I rang the doorbell, and there she was. For a moment, she looked at me like she wasn't sure who I was, but then her eyes softened, almost like she was relieved, or maybe she thought this would be another moment where I would give in to her demands. I hated that look. I hated it because it reminded me of everything I used to be, someone who couldn't see her for who she really was. "Dad," she said, her voice already trying to manipulate me. "I wasn't expecting you. Come in, please." I stepped inside, without responding. She led me into her living room, and for a moment, I could almost pretend nothing had changed. The pictures on the walls, the soft lighting, it all felt like it used to, a home. But the illusion was gone. It was just a house, not a home, not anymore. I sat down across from her, my gaze never leaving hers. She smiled at me, but it was empty. Hollow. I could see the walls she'd built around herself, the armor she wore every day to protect her lies. "So, what's this all about, Dad?" she asked, her voice laced with false concern. "Why are you here? I thought we settled everything." "You've been lying to me for months," I said, my voice low but steady. "I didn't think you'd go this far." Her smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. "What are you talking about?" I didn't flinch. I wasn't here to beg for her to fix things. I wasn't here to ask for an apology. I wasn't here for any of that. I was here to expose her. "I know about the embezzlement. I know you've been stealing from me, selling my properties, hiding money in offshore accounts. I have all the proof, everything I need to destroy you," I said, dropping the bombshell. Her face turned white. For a moment, I thought I saw genuine fear flicker in her eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it came. She leaned forward, trying to regain control of the situation. Her hands shook slightly, but she masked it well. I don't know what." "You mean?" she stammered, but the defensiveness in her voice was unmistakable. She knew she was caught. "Don't play dumb with me," I said, my voice suddenly colder than I intended. "I have the records, the accounts, the transfers, the proof you've been stealing from me, from everyone around you. You've been using your position to fund your own selfish lifestyle." She stood up, pacing the room. "Dad, this isn't what you think. I did it because I had to. I was trying to keep things afloat, trying to make everything work. You don't understand. You were never there for me. I interrupted her. "You did it because you're a liar and a thief. Don't give me that excuse. I'm not interested." Her expression twisted with anger, but there was also something desperate in her eyes, the desperation of someone who knew they were losing control. "I didn't mean for it to get out of hand," she whispered, the facade starting to crack. "I thought I could fix everything before you found out. I thought you'd understand. I was doing what I had to do to survive." She was close now. She was almost begging for my forgiveness. But I wasn't interested in hearing it anymore. I stood up slowly, taking a step toward her. She looked at me with a mixture of confusion and dread. "I've already sent everything to the authorities," I said flatly, watching her face drain of color. "I couldn't sit by and let you destroy me any longer." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable now, raw and panicked. No, no, you didn't. Please don't do this. I can fix it. I can make it. Right. Just give me a chance, please. But I didn't flinch. I didn't soften. I just stood there, watching the woman I'd once loved as she crumbled before me. I haven't, I said quietly. And I never will. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw something more than her usual manipulation. She was terrified. Not because of me, but because she knew she was about to lose everything. I turned my back on her, walking toward the door. Dad, please, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I'll do anything. Please don't leave me. I paused, one hand on the door, and took a slow, deep breath. I never wanted to be this cold. But what other choice did I have? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She's pushed me to this point, and now I'm free. With that, I stepped out into the cold, leaving her behind. I'd made my choice. I had no intention of looking back. I watched from a distance as everything she had worked so hard to build began to crumble. Her business, gone. The stock plummeted even further. Creditors came knocking, and investors pulled out. The news hit like a tidal wave. It was hard to ignore. Every headline, every financial analyst's report, every whisper in the corporate world. She was done. Her friends? Gone. One by one, the people who'd once been by her side had distanced themselves. Everyone saw it now. They saw her for what she truly was, a liar, a thief, a manipulator. I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. In the beginning, maybe, I would have. I might have felt a flicker of pity, but now it was just numbness. I watched her life spiral, but there was no satisfaction in it anymore. Only a quiet resolve. I had regained control over my own life. No longer was I the man who'd been manipulated and deceived. I was free. I didn't need her anymore. I didn't need anyone. I had prepared for this moment, for the eventual day when she would push me to the edge and I would walk away without looking back. And yet, I felt no joy in watching her lose everything. Days passed, and I found myself receiving more calls from her. I ignored them all, letting the voicemail pile up, but I knew it was coming. I could feel it in my bones. She was coming for me. I finally answered the phone one afternoon. Dad, please, I need to see you. Her voice was shaky, vulnerable. The woman who had once been so confident, so sure of herself, was now broken. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, just a strange, almost empty calmness. I'll be there in an hour, I said flatly. When I arrived at her apartment, I didn't see the powerful businesswoman I'd once known. There was no self-assuredness in her demeanor, no cold arrogance. The person sitting in front of me was a shattered version of that woman. I've lost everything, she whispered, her voice breaking. My company, my friends, everything. You were the only one who ever cared. Please, Dad, help me. I'll fix it. I swear. I'll make it right. Just tell me what to do. Please. I couldn't look at her. Not in the way I used to. Not anymore. She was just a stranger now. A stranger who had used and discarded me, and who now wanted me to pick up the pieces. For a moment I felt the weight of it, the history between us, the father-daughter bond that had once meant everything to me. And then, just as quickly, I let it go. I can't help you, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She reached out, grabbing my hand, but I didn't flinch. Dad, please, you can't just leave me like this. You're all I have left. I can't do this on my own. I'll do anything at all. Just give me a chance. I pulled my hand away. Her desperation, her fear, it hit me. But there was no room for sympathy anymore. Not for her. Not for me. You don't understand, I said quietly. I'm not your savior. I can't fix you. I'm not going to keep letting you drag me down with you. I've let go. I've let go of everything, of you, of what we had. It's over." Her face contorted in pain as my words sank in. She started to speak, but I didn't want to hear it. There was nothing left to say. And then I dropped the final bombshell. "You think I'm just a broken man, don't you? You think you've taken everything from me?" "You're wrong," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I've been preparing for this day for years. I've secured my future. I don't need you. I never needed you." Her face went pale, the realization sinking in. What are you talking about?" I didn't answer her. Instead, I walked toward the door, opening it to leave. "This is what you wanted," I said, without turning back. "You wanted me gone. You pushed me to the edge, to the point where I couldn't come back. But now you're the one who's lost everything. And I'm finally free." I closed the door behind me, and I walked away, my steps deliberate, my heart finally at peace. The years of anger, confusion, and betrayal were gone. I had nothing left to prove. I was free. But in that freedom, there was also something else, an emptiness that I couldn't quite place. I was alone, but for the first time in years, I didn't mind. It happened so fast. One day, her life was still a whirlwind of lies, manipulation, and self-preservation. The next, everything she had worked for was crashing down around her like a house of cards. The authorities had finally caught up to her. Investigators began digging into the mess she'd made, into the money laundering, the embezzlement, the fake transactions she'd hidden for years. I could see it in the news, stories of her company's bankruptcy, the criminal charges, the faces of former colleagues and business partners speaking out against her. It was happening. She was going to lose everything. I thought I'd feel satisfaction watching her fall, but all I felt was indifference. I had already walked away from it all, from her, from the wreckage of our past. I was done. But watching her unravel, watching her try to hold on to a life that no longer existed, it did something to me. She called me. Again. But this time, her voice was different. It wasn't the cold, manipulative tone I was used to. It wasn't the voice of someone who thought she could control the situation. This time, it was desperate. A voice that had finally realized the truth. It was too late. "Dad, please. I don't know where to turn anymore. It's all falling apart. Please." She trailed off, a shaky breath breaking through. "I don't know what to do. I can't lose everything. I can't lose you, too." I stared at the phone for a long time, unsure of what to feel. A part of me wanted to give in. A part of me wanted to hear her say that she was sorry, that she had made a mistake, that she wanted to fix everything. But another part, the part that had been beaten down for so long, wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Her voice was still echoing in my mind when I finally saw her again. She was sitting in her apartment, her face a mask of exhaustion and guilt. Her eyes were bloodshot as though she hadn't slept in days. She looked so different. "So broken." "Dad," she whispered when I walked in, barely meeting my eyes. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Everything I did, I thought it was the only way. I didn't mean to hurt you, not really, I swear, I didn't." Her words cracked under the weight of the tears she was trying to hold back. I didn't move, didn't react. I simply watched her, watched the woman I'd once raised as she tried to piece together the shards of a life she had shattered, the familiar ache in my chest, the ache that always came when I thought of her, was gone. In its place was a coldness, a finality that made my heart feel strangely light. "You didn't hurt me. You destroyed me," I said, my voice quiet but firm. It wasn't anger I felt. It was sorrow. Sorrow for the daughter I had lost. Sorrow for what could have been, but never was. "Please don't turn away from me now," she begged, her voice breaking. She stood up, her hands trembling as she reached out toward me. "I can't fix this alone. I'm not strong enough. You're the only one who can help me. Please. I'm begging you." Her desperation hit me like a wave, but I didn't flinch. I couldn't. I was done. "I can't help you," I said flatly. "You chose this. You chose everything that led us here. And I've chosen to walk away. There's nothing left to save." The room was silent for a long time. Her eyes were wide, her lips trembling as she searched for words. But there was nothing left for either of us to say. I looked at her one last time. The daughter I had once known, the daughter I had raised, was a stranger to me now. And as she stood there, her face pale, her body shaking, I realized something. I had already let go. With no more words, I turned toward the door. The emotional weight that had carried me for so long was gone now. The guilt, the need for closure, the anger, it was all gone. I didn't look back. The game was over. And as I walked out, the final piece of me, the part that still cared, still held on, slipped away. There's nothing left to save. Not for her, not for me. The game is over. And with that, I was free. I stood outside the nursing home, my bags packed and ready, the sun just beginning to dip below the horizon. The chill of the evening air wrapped around me, but it didn't feel cold anymore. It felt like freedom. This place, this sterile, suffocating building, had once been a symbol of everything that had gone wrong, a reminder of my daughter's betrayal, of how she'd trapped me here, of how I'd lost myself in her lies and manipulations. But now, standing in front of it, I felt nothing but relief. I was done. I had spent months, maybe even years, questioning who I was, doubting my own worth. But now I knew. I had reclaimed my self-worth, not from her, not from anyone else. I did it on my own. I wasn't the man who had been deceived, who had been tossed aside without a second thought. I wasn't the broken father who had begged for his daughter's love and attention. I had walked away from that man, piece by piece, and now I was whole. I took one last look at the nursing home, letting the door swing shut behind me. My journey here had been long, painful, but it had finally led me to the one thing I'd been searching for: peace. As I walked down the quiet street, I could hear the faint buzzing of my phone. My daughter's name flashed across the screen. She'd tried to reach me so many times, and I knew what she would say. I knew the apology would come, the desperate pleas, the promises to fix everything. But I didn't pick up. Her voice echoed in my mind, pleading, crying, asking for forgiveness. She was still lost, still trapped in the same patterns, the same lies. She didn't see the truth, not yet. I had given her everything I had to give, and she had taken it, and now I was finally walking away. The phone buzzed again. I ignored it. She had made her choices. Now she would have to face the consequences of them. She had to learn, just like I did, that no one can destroy you unless you let them. I had let her destroy me for far too long. I paused on the sidewalk, feeling the weight of the moment. There was no anger anymore, no bitterness. There was only clarity. I had already let go of the past. The world around me seemed so much brighter now, as if a weight had been lifted. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom, and I had finally taken it. I stepped onto the bus, the hum of the engine and the low chatter of passengers nothing more than background noise to the peace inside me. The last few months, hell, the last few years, had been nothing but a fight to hold on. But now, I had nothing left to fight for. I was free. The bus rolled through the city and I watched the familiar sights pass by. But they didn't feel the same. The places that had once carried so much pain, so much resentment, were just places. The ghosts that had haunted me, gone. I didn't look back. As the bus turned the corner, I could feel the weight of the past slipping further and further away. It didn't matter anymore. I wasn't going back. The final text from her came through. I read it without even considering. Responding, "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't need to respond. I didn't need to explain anything. I used to think I needed her. But now I see the truth. I never did. And that, in itself, was my victory." If you've ever been through something like this, if you've had to let go of someone you loved for your own peace, let me know in the comments. How did you handle it? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching.